Fire Emblem is a magical series. Just like how every single Pokemon has a shooter out there somewhere, every single Fire Emblem character has someone willing to kill for them. It doesn't matter if it's a popular character like Ike, or an obscure character like Frost. Someone, somewhere, has a shrine dedicated to them in their home. This entire episode started because my buddy Andrew really loves Catria, and convinced me to do an episode on her. And when I asked him why he loved Catria, he just said it's because he grew up in the suburbs and didn't explain any more than that. So, Catria is getting an analysis because some dude from Pennsylvania grew up in the suburbs. I don't get it either. But before we get into the video, please remember to subscribe. I know asking for subscriptions before the video even starts is really tacky, so that's why I'm not asking, I'm threatening. If you don't subscribe to my channel, I will break into your house and rearrange all of your furniture in a way that's enough to make you notice something's wrong, but not enough for you to be able to tell exactly what is.
There is no meme. This is just a threat.
Catria is a member of the Whitewings, a group of 3 Pegasus Knights in service to Princess Minerva of Macedon. They're orphan sisters, with the eldest sister Paula having to essentially raise the youngest Est and the middle child Catria as if she was their mother. Their role in the story of FE1 is to just be Minerva's knights. They don't really have much of any character outside of just doing whatever Minerva wants. Just like how Cain and Abel don't really have a character outside of doing what Marth wants, or the Wolfguard have a character outside of Hardin. I did a whole video on Minerva a while back, but to summarize quickly, all Minerva wants is for her brother Michaelis to stop being a fuckhead and live in peace with her and their youngest sister Maria. And unfortunately for Minerva, not even death will stop Michaelis from being a fuckhead. So that's what the Whitewings have to fight for. Catria is supposed to be the more serious sister compared to Paula and Est, but it's not really showing off in FE1 that much because Catria doesn't really do anything in FE1. That's not to say she herself isn't good in the early goings of the series. It's just what's cool about Catria is the Whitewings as a collective. So for now, I'm just going to talk about the things the Whitewings as a group do until Catria starts to come more into her own. The first Fire Emblem wasn't really designed with the idea that you bond with your units as characters, but instead bond with them as units. And the way Catria, Paula, and Est are designed is really solid and feeds into that. Not only are all 3 of them good units, boasting good growth rates and stats, but they also have the only team-up attack in the game, their signature triangle attack, which, for the uninitiated, when 2 of the sisters are next to an enemy, the 3rd sister gets a guaranteed critical hit when she attacks. Team-up attacks are one of those things that are just cool by default. Chrono Trigger's entire combat system was founded on this principle, and it makes having the 3 Whitewings stand out a ton. Plus, they all have unique portraits. That doesn't sound like much, but when you're dealing with the NES limitations, that's a big deal. Catria didn't have much in FE1, but she had more than the people around her, which in turn made her stand out that much more. Catria and the Whitewings return in FE Gaiden, where it's kind of a neat twist that they're in it at all. Up to their introduction, Gaiden made no reference to FE1, so them showing up is a moment for the player to go, "Whoa, this game is connected to that other one I played?" But that's really all there is. The Whitewings being there don't have the narrative significance that Camus being there does. They're kinda just hanging around. All 3 of them are good units once again, but that's about it. Though I will say, Catria now has a new epilogue if one of her sisters die. Going from the pleasant, having safely rescued Est, she returned to her homeland, leaving behind nothing but a smile. And instead, if one of them are dead, it'll go to, having lost her sisters, she returned to her homeland with grief in her heart. You know, that doesn't make you feel any pain. I'm fine. Fire Emblem 3 has Catria and her sisters return, again to help Minerva in her time of need and to fight with Marth alongside her. Catria is the first Whitewing to be recruited, but she doesn't really do anything in the story. Oh, I'm sorry. She does recruit Warren. You know Warren, right? That classic, iconic Warren. Everyone loves Warren.
Wait for my signal. Take him out.
Yet again, the Whitewings don't really do all that much in the story. But that's true for most Arcaneian characters. People didn't bond with Navarre, Agma, and the rest because they had deep and complex backstories. They bonded with them because they had just enough background to be kinda cool, and then they would go off and kill 50 men. And Catria is much the same. For 3 straight games, she's a solid unit with a cool concept, and because of that, she stands out among the series' early cast. But the legacy of Catria and her sisters was definitely felt as the series went on, as all 3 Game Boy Advance games would have the concept of the Whitewings in them. Binding Blade would play it straight, with Juno, Thea, and Shauna being very directly inspired by Paula, Catria, and Est. Hell, Heroes even has a Catria-Thea duo ult with this very concept. And Fire Emblem 7 and 8 experiment a bit more, keeping the idea of 3 Flyer sisters, or sister adjacents in Tana's case, but experimenting with the personalities a bit. It's very clear Fire Emblem loved the Whitewing concept and wanted to do more with it than they could back on the NES and Super Nintendo. So while Catria might not have had much character in her original games, her impact on the series should not be overlooked. But this legacy actually creates kind of a funny problem for when the Arcaneian games eventually got remade on the DS. How do you write Catria in a way that doesn't feel like a knockoff? But I want to briefly put a pin on that problem of trying to write for Catria, and instead talk about a different problem that's being faced. The fact that you aren't currently subscribed to my Patreon. That's right, I have a Patreon, where for as little as $3 a month, you can help support the channel and gain access to exclusive benefits, like getting your name read in videos, and if you pay the big bucks of $7, you can vote on polls to decide future episodes. However, this month is an exception. Because Mutiny was committed and my poll was overridden for Catria, I've decided that there is no poll, and the next episode is just going to be on Donald. But if you want to give me money anyway, please. My patrons include the likes of Adebayo Thompson, Andrew Crockett, Bean Juice, Benz Again, Dr. McBackstab, Great Riek, Hell on Heelys, Ichigo D. Camus, Jaeger, Guts, Kenpachi, Shira, Uzumaki, Kiri, Matrix, Chartos, Charanzable, Frederick, Sirius, Bolsara, Hakuman, The White Void, Despacito 2, Lie-17 Bull, Marth War Criminal, Morga Lorgan, Plaid Arrow, Ranger Man Sam, Shenlu, the world's most unironic 8.5 tail stand, Veery the Artist, Hallmark Reader, Your Girl Olwen, Brentendo 11, Drew Hack, Fire Emblem Lord, Ginger, Guga Gaga, Cornelia Milkers 92, Maple Knight, and Upscale Furry Trash. Thank you all for your continued support, and now let's actually talk about the problem writers face with Catria and try not to make her a knockoff. And it's kind of a baffling problem to have. If Catria was played straight and just written as a serious middle child, she would have felt very derivative of Thea, despite the fact that Thea came after her. So when Shadow Dragon and New Mysteries writers started going with her, they had to come up with a new angle to approach her character from. And what they ended up deciding on was giving her an unrequited love to the game's lead Marth in the epilogue of Fire Emblem 11, and then letting Fire Emblem 12 expand upon it with supports. At first, this might seem like a stale idea to go with for Catria's character, as Marisha and Tiki already had the shtick of having feelings for Marth, but those two girls are just that, girls. They had no hope with getting with Marth at all given that he's an adult. Catria is a grown woman who theoretically would have a chance, were Marth's heart not given to Sheeta a long time ago. so exploring unrequited love from her hits in a way that's different from how it was before, so I actually think this is a neat way to go with it. Her supports with Est and Chris are the ones that dabble in her love for Marth. With Chris, it's a support chain about how spending time with friends can be enough to work out issues you have with yourself. Catria never directly tells Chris that she's in love with Marth, but just by being their friend, it manages to lighten the load a little. It's not a complex or original lesson, but it's a good one to remind people of. It's good to show Catria work out her feelings on her own without directly needing to talk about them. This is where Catria being a grown woman instead of a teenager, like a lot of these stories, comes into play. She's mature enough to understand that she won't be with Marth no matter what. She doesn't need a conversation about how it's never going to be, she just needs to live life and let it work itself out. Which is a perspective that I feel isn't shown off as much, and arguably happens much more often than actually sitting down and talking about it. And her S support starts cute, with Catria just being a worrywart over S before realizing she's a big girl now that can handle herself. It's some good sibling writing that makes both characters endearing. But it ends with Catria inadvertently being harsh with Est in training because of her own jealousy. She sees Est and Abel already married and has this sort of, it should have been me, not her kind of moment, which is good for multiple reasons. Her feelings aren't just quietly mulled over, they're shown to be expressed in very unhealthy ways, and that helps her feel a bit more human and more relatable. Catria's ability to recognize that she's treating Est unfairly also shows a level of maturity that a lot of people lack, again, letting her more serious personality show in a good way. And also, this might be really fucked up to laugh at, but her being jealous of Est and Abel is incredibly funny, given what a dumpster fire that marriage ends up being. It's a very solid support for both sisters. Her support with Paula shows off another side of her character that's completely separate to her feelings of Marth. Catria is shown to suffer from having self-esteem issues, compared to Paula, who is very outwardly kind and a source of strength to anyone who talks to her, and compared to Est, who has an incredible ability to roll with the punches and adapt to life as it happens to her. Catria feels that she doesn't have anything on her own to stand out with. And Paula encourages her to look at herself, saying that if Catria can see the perks of the other people around her, she should be able to see the perks in herself. Catria is not the only character in Fire Emblem to have self-esteem issues, but despite an originality, I really like how they go about with the idea for her. Because Catria looks inward and realizes her strength lies in her ability to learn from what happens to her. Whenever life takes her in a new direction, she takes the lessons she needs to from every interaction and never makes the same mistake twice. And I like that this comes from her own reflection, and not someone just telling her that she's great. Having self-esteem just because people around you compliment you isn't real self-esteem. It's just the words of the people around you. Catria's love for herself comes from herself. She sits down and realizes what makes her unique, and seeing self-esteem tackled from this angle is a very good thing to show. I can imagine someone with esteem issues being able to look at Catria and do a similar type of reflection, making this support a very solid one with a solid moral in there. It also ties to her love of Marth without ever directly mentioning it, because Catria does look inward and gets over her love of Marth entirely on her own. Her epilogue is about her feeling bad for Paula's love life. Like big sister, like little sister, Paula has an unrequited love of her own, hers being for Abel. Actually, Catria, despite being the only one of the Whitewings whose character revolves around romance issues, is the only one of them to not suffer from romance issues. Paula's ending and Est's ending don't have them in happy romances. I'm not entirely sure why Paula and Est are doomed by the narrative, but Catria standing proud on her own is a nice way to show how unrequited love works. It sucks for a bit, and oh man, it hurts, but life goes on and you go on. I really like how Catria's character looks over it. Catria makes one final reappearance in Fire Emblem Echoes, the remake of Fire Emblem Gaiden, where she just maintains her serious nature and personality that she had in Mystery. Her supports with her sisters are sweet, but nothing to really analyze. They're just her bouncing off of her sisters in a sweet way. Like a lot of Echo's character writing, it's minimal but effective. And that's kinda just Catria herself in a nutshell. She doesn't have mountains upon mountains of dialogue, but she does have a solid character, with relatable struggles and good lessons a player can take from them. There's not much more than that you need to be a character to stand the test of time. And Catria's been around for over 30 years, and she's been doing a damn good job for that entire time. I would like to thank you all for making it to the end of another character analysis video. Andrew, I've done Catria. You can stop DMing me every episode asking me to do Catria. I am at long last freed from your burden. I would also like to thank my buddy Guy for looking over the script and making sure that I haven't written anything too stupid or out of my mind. I'll do it one day, but that day is not today. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, all that malarkey. Consider following me on Twitter, the link is in the description, and consider joining my Discord, the link is also in the description. We like to have fun there. You're looking at some posts from it right now. I pop in there every now and again. It's a good time, and I'd appreciate it if you stopped in and said hey, even if you just lurk and never say a word ever. Until next time.
Change the world. My final message. Good